I saw the result of the EU referendum on BBC News and I felt quite shocked. I think probably many people felt shocked. I actually cried. I was surprised at how emotional my response was. I'd watched it until quite late the previous evening and thought, oh, this is just anomalous. Like, this isn't going to be how it turns out. I don't believe this. So I'll go to bed, pray for something different to happen, and then I woke up and yeah, I was quite surprised. Went into work, everyone was a Remainer apart from one person, and I have to say I felt really sorry for them. So I tried to be neutral. Do I see the country as any different from the result, or have I learned anything? Yes. I don't know based on, it's difficult to limit that just to the result itself, because now over 2 years have passed, so I've learned a lot. Initially, I think the first thing I learned was people aren't happy and people want change. I knew that, I was aware that that was the case beforehand, but I didn't realise how strong that was. And I think I see the UK as being more, I don't know, something like maybe outspoken or risk-taking than I'd believed before. And I wonder if maybe everybody underestimated what everybody else was feeling. And in a sense, I kind of see that as a positive thing, although I'm not happy with the result. I think that sometimes people need to be heard, and people shouted quite loudly in the referendum. I've learned other things from doing research on Brexit, so doing a Brexit roadshow with the Centre for Brexit Studies. I've learned the reasons that led people to vote in the way that they did. I've learned about how people make decisions politically. I've learned that what we assume about people is not always the case, and that's one of the key drivers in my research into Brexit. And that people do need to be heard, and I really think that was a driving factor. People didn't feel listened to, and in fact what I've learned since, also through doing the research, is that people still aren't feeling listened to, so it hasn't solved the problem, which I think is sad. I personally don't have the option to take another passport. I'm not Irish, I've got a bit of Welsh in my family, but I don't have any claim to another passport, so it's not an option. I would consider it if I did though. I know people who have done. So the result of the referendum has changed my life in a sense. It's difficult to distinguish between my personal life and my professional life, because I went to a festival, Butterfield Festival in 2016, 1 month after the referendum result. I was in a marquee where there was a workshop called, I think it was the Buddha and Brexit, and we had to sit in groups and be another group, like for example pro-Brexit journalists or pro-Remain politicians and so on and so forth, and EU citizens living in the EU were living in the UK, so there were about 10 different groups. We had to say something like, my fear is, and my question to another group is, and it really changed how I saw politics. I really saw how directly, I've never really been that interested in it. Now I'm doing research in it. So in that way it's changed my professional life. But I saw that people, even people who were at this like kind of Buddhist sort of type festival, found it so difficult to contain their opinions and to empathise. So it changed my personal life in that I've taken more of an interest in politics, but the way in which that has led me has been to do research. So it's changed my professional life. I now am part of the Centre for Brexit Studies and doing research in that, and it's just fascinating. And I think I tend to be fairly flexible-minded anyway, but this has got me to kind of stretch my neutrality, as it were, to the limits, and tolerate points of view that are really, really discrepant from my own, and to try to understand them more, so to become more empathic. So yeah, it has changed in that way. Well, if I had one word to sum up how I feel about the situation today, it's difficult to pin it down to one word. But in my body, if I listen to my body, there's a feeling of tension around my chest, and I think that's a kind of like a fear response. I'm a bit afraid. If I were to say more about what the fear is about, then it would be that we are going to be an isolated island, that we will be culturally and socially separated from the rest of Europe, that trade will suffer, that we'll have less money, and that the people who voted for Brexit for economic reasons and for, like for example, not having the resources that they need, or maybe it was a protest vote, that they're not going to get their needs met. I'm afraid for them. That's mostly what it is. And I'm also afraid of this division, like this big crack that seems to have emerged. And there's been divisions even between families that that have been reported. And my own family, they're sort of votes on both sides. There are pockets of my family, massive family, that voted different ways. My partner voted differently from me, and we've been okay. But yeah, some people really, there's a lot of vitriol, especially on social media. I find that saddening. I don't want that to get any worse. So when I met my partner, we met online, and I think it was maybe our third date or something. We went to a bar in the city, and we was finding out more about what I do for my job. And I said, I do research on Brexit, and do you mind me asking, how did you vote? He said, I voted to leave. He's from the Black Country, but really strongly Leave voting area. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's so level-headed and calm and friendly, just such a really, really lovely, kind man. But I asked him about Brexit, and all of a sudden I was like taken aback. Maybe it was our fifth date or something, because I'd known him a bit more. And it was just this different person, all this emotion came out, and I'm tired of being labelled as a racist. That's not why I voted. I voted because the EU's undemocratic, and just came out with this torrent of views and opinions on Brexit. And it was from, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, slightly defensive stance. And I just listened, because I don't judge people for how they vote. If I have judgmental thoughts, those are my thoughts. That doesn't reflect on the person. And I wasn't judging him, but I was just so surprised. And so I said, well, I don't think I can see you anymore. But I was joking, and actually we have a very harmonious relationship. I've interviewed him as part of my research. We have really frank conversations, and I quite enjoy the fact that he has a different perspective. Even I do tease him, and I said, seeing how everything's so shambolic now, would you change your vote if you could? And he says no, and I said, well, you're an idiot then. So we have a bit of a laugh about it. But yeah, it was just, I've never seen him so passionate about anything, just the most chilled out, laid back person. One thing that I would like to add is something that I've already said, but just to draw it out again, which is that you don't know what people's reasons were, and you don't know what their stories are until you hear them. So this is a great project, and yeah, I think just really trying to be open to each other is going to be key to the success of Britain.